I'm calling from Los Angeles, and I'm having a little problem under the name ThatUmbrellaGuy. I sent him my phone number at least 20 times in the chat and told him to call me. He ignored me, or I'm a man. I filed the report. If you guys could take a look at it and give me a call back, I would love to hear what you guys can do to help us. We really need to kind of stop this guy at least until Monday. I told him to call me, or I'm a man.
I deleted my heart, and I really want it back. I don't want to feel like I might be a sociopath. I deleted my heart. I was young and impulsive, and I would download another, but I'm afraid it wouldn't fit. I deleted my heart. I deleted my heart. I deleted my heart.
We love that umbrella guy. All right. Thank you.
Under my umbrella.
How's it going today? Now this is a big one today. Yeah, crazy one. I mean, this is also a story. Like, all joking aside for a second, this is a story that is getting ghosted. And what I mean is, it's a story that if you look up Dan Wooten right now, let's do something real quick. I want to show you something. Like, there's a lot of people that are not covering this. They're not really talking about it. Because at the end of the day, if you search this topic, now check this out. Now you got to remember, there's a few channels that I follow in here, so they'll actually pop up because I'm not doing a I'm not just doing a brand new, like brand new account search. But if you look here, notice you'll have like okay, like eHacker and Come Geek Some, they'll fall in here because I follow them. But this is actually it's ghosted. I mean, when you look at all the other places, I mean, finally you'll find a live stream somewhere at the bottom. But by and large, when you look up Dan Wooten, you find nothing. You find nothing at all. It's crazy stuff, especially when, I mean, when I say nothing, what I'm talking about is nothing from anyone that isn't part of the lamestream media. Lamestream controls the narrative. They have with a Dan Wooten. And like I said, this is a topic that a lot of people probably want to know about, but they're not going to get anything outside of that media circle. And it's kind of sad because, again, this is a monster freaking story there. Fallen Hero, thanks for that gifted membership. Appreciate that. Also, I saw a member. Give me 1 second. I saw somebody join and I took his picture. Angela, thank you. Welcome. Thank you for the membership. Welcome to Tugs Thugs. I'm glad I got a shot of that. But yeah, I mean, it's just like what we were seeing with prior storylines, and that's sad considering we are seeing right now. So here is an article coming out of The Guardian. With Dan Wooten, as I said, I didn't know if Dan Wooten would actually be suspended or not. I had no idea whether that would happen. But like I said the other day, I felt that if given enough pressure, one one place would cave, and I didn't think it would be GB News, not right off the bat. But the Daily Mail or Mail Online, they did. Now you got to remember his column for the Daily for Mail Online, it had been offline since June. He hadn't been around, so people had speculated on whether or not he was suspended. Well, that's actually been confirmed. So he is indeed suspended. He is indeed being investigated behind the scenes. How the tables have turned, right? I mean, this is crazy. And there's new articles on this as well. I mean, more and more stuff keep coming up. Not just suspensions, but more and more stuff, like the connection of him with that Martin Branding account. I mean, just so much craziness. Hey, by the way, Naomi, thank you for 5 gifted memberships. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. Again, there are new emojis in there too. Make sure you play with them. And next week I'll drop another 10 or so, just so I have fun. But check out these. Okay, here's The Guardian, for example. The Guardian, apparently, there's 2 outlets that have had a lot. I'm not saying I respect any of these outlets, by the way. Don't get that twisted. When we look at this, this is, as I've said before, this is more like a popcorn moment. When you're watching the lame streamers eat themselves. That's fun to watch. That's fun times. But as far as trusting any of them, I don't believe allegations. But people like Dan Wooten, again, they do. If you don't know Dan Wooten for some reason, you've tripped into this. Like Dan Wooten, he's tried to destroy many a person. He is the guy who caused the UK trial for JD. Spent over a decade, or over half a decade, rather, trying to destroy the man, his reputation, and more. And yeah, then he was accused of some of the most insane stuff that I've ever heard. I mean, it just keeps getting weirder and weirder by the day. He can't get any money right now. It's money's froze. As far as support, it looks like his support base, it's languishing. And it's very understandable because he threw in with the listen and believe crowd. So, Subi Sue, thanks for the 2, by the way. And that super sticker. Thank you. So, the Mail Online suspends Dan Wooten as allegations investigated. Journalist denies claims that he used pseudonym to secretly offer colleagues tens of thousands of pounds for, we're going to say, illicit material. I mean, this is the guy. Okay, so there's 2 outlets, like I was saying, that have really covered this heavily. There's Byline and there's The Guardian. And I don't have I've seen Byline go after people like myself or yourself before in the past, so respect there, and not so much. The Guardian I have no respect for whatsoever. But what they do have is they have a lot of power. And again, when you're thinking about this, think about these are the same forces that Dan Wooten tried to rally behind his causes when he's canceled other people. Only now, again, they're aiming straight at him and his career. Oh, how the tables turn, right? Steph, thank you for the gifted membership, by the way. Thank you. Good stuff there. 1 second here. Oh, yeah. Somebody's asking, is the suspension from TV? No, not yet, because you're talking about, okay, with GB News. GB News has continued. See, okay, this is something to clarify with that. All right. Dan had he had an ongoing column with Mail Online, the Daily Mail. The Daily Mail, they love to run hit pieces and stuff. Well, it's just they were absent any coverage on this topic at all. And then they weirdly, I mean, they went with the thing that Dan Wooten didn't want, but he says he wants, people to be investigated, people to be suspended. But as far as GB News is concerned, he continues on GB News. And the reason for that is because he linked all of this as an attack on GB News. GB News, their reputation is going to be damaged regardless with that. If he survives this, then they'll get to backpat themselves and everything else. But they're gambling heavily. And again, Dan Wooten was really smart about that, to link the network itself to him. I'm talking about strategy. When I talk about this, I want to be clear on that too. I'm just talking about strategy wise. Dan Wooten, when he approaches this is career killer. I mean, we are watching every day. We are watching the potential. This will take a while to play out. Again, this will end up in a courtroom and more, but you'll be able to tell what's found behind the scenes. And the way that you'll be able to tell that is the reaction of places. But Dan Wooten has been suspended by Mail Online after allegations emerged that he used a pseudonym to secretly offer his colleagues tens of thousands of pounds in returns for illicit material. The GB News presenter had a lucrative job writing a twice-weekly column for Mail Online since 2021. Now, you think about that. That's something to put into this, too. We're not talking about somebody that comes in and just writes a column here or there. This is one of the most watched, most listened to voices is across the pond, as it were. I mean, he is very well known there. We're talking about, a top tenor, a big one, and he's getting huge payday. He had consistency. He had been there time and again writing. They were paying him, again, not a freelancer. It's not just somebody that, it's like if I were to say, oh, well, Eve Barlow doesn't have something, you'd be like, Eve Barlow never had anything anyway, right? But if I tell you, if I were to compare that to some other, like I was like, hey, Dan Rather got hit for something, be like, oh yeah, that's somebody I know. Well, Dan Wooten, same way. I mean, he had consistent columns. He had been doing this since 2021. 2 times a week, and boof, up in smoke. So you could see that there was something going on. Mashed Potato Goblin, by the way. And what's up? Thank you for the 5 gifted memberships and the cool name. Also seeing your name right there. Thanks, Sam. But it appeared since the allegations, but it's not appeared, rather, since the allegations were made public by his ex-boyfriend last month. Now, we're going to look today, by the way, his ex-boyfriend, Truby, Alex Truby, he did a interview with the Byline Times, and we're going to look at that. We haven't looked at it. There are 2 new articles. I mean, these articles come up faster than I can cover them because there's so much of this, because you're in the eye of the storm. I mean, this is happening. It's just popping off big time. And it is very much like the herd coverage. You remember the vacuum that was created? It's the same thing. I mean, you see the vacuum, or you see things that look like distractions, which are equally interesting, in my opinion. But Wooten is also under investigation by his former employers at Rupert Murdoch's News UK. See, that's a crazy thing. I like hearing this from other places just because the way that they frame it, it's not framed as seriously when you look at I won't even say friendly media. If you don't go to adversarial media for Dan Wooten, they don't frame the seriousness of this. He is being investigated currently by his former employers. They want to clear their name. They want to make sure that, and again, remember the allegations with the son are that he was taking money. He was putting money into fake sources so he could fuel blackmail schemes. And also on top of that, there were the allegations that behind the scenes at his own workplace that he was harassing people, that people had non-disclosure agreements, which they would already know. Again, that quote unquote investigation, if that stuff is legit, the investigation becomes damage control, which you'll find out in litigation. And that, oh man, I hope if that ends up being true, I hope people roll the freaking News UK through the mud for it. Because again, they would be lying to you about investigation. They would already know. It would be in their HR files. But where he worked for more than a decade as a celebrity journalist. So again, when you look at the allegations, they span huge swaths of time. And not only do they do that, but they call in the legitimacy of over a decade worth of news articles. And we've seen people fake articles before. We've seen some rather huge journalists, they come in, big ones, prize-winning journalists that have actually created just false stories, have manufactured stuff. And this, like I said, if he gets caught manufacturing sources, that destroys. I hate to use the word credibility with some of these folks, but I mean that's a destroyer too. And the receipts on that look bad. I mean, they don't look good at all. But where he was hired for more than a decade, so the company has hired an external law firm to investigate claims Wooten targeted current and former Sun employees with offer of money in return for explicit images. A spokesperson for DMG Media, the parent company of Mail Online, confirmed that Wooten would not be working for them for the foreseeable future. So like I said, right there, this is something, and this has been going on for a hot minute. I mean, again, you had an entire month. So we're talking about, when you think about it in revenue, Dan, this also tells you that the revenue stream that protected him, the amount of money that was coming into places like the Sun or the Daily Mail, that's not enough. When you balance out the risk versus the reward, somebody is feeling, well, he's not worth it anymore. Hashtag, he's not worth it, right? So their quote was, "We are continuing to consider a series of allegations which Dan Wooten, who has written columns for Mail Online since 2021 as one of several outside freelance contributors, has strenuously denied." Now, I like this. This is a distancing statement, by the way. When you talk about somebody, when you when you call them an employee, you feel good about them. When you start distancing from them, that's when you start calling them not just freelancers. That's when you notice it's not just one descriptor here, it's two. You have freelancer and you have outside freelancer attached. Again, that tells you that they're like, oh, wait a minute, this isn't good, because you added a redundant descriptor. When you say freelancer, well, that's already outside, but they made it very, very clear. This guy, he doesn't represent us. He's not really one of us. Again, you see things like that. You got to pay attention to this small print there, because this looks like they're already pushing. They're pushing him away. Again, they're saying he's hashtag not worth it. The allegations are obviously severe, but also complex and historic. And there is an invest. Let me start over. I got to switch my brain off from day job to this. Here we go. Professional. Okay, here we go. The allegations are obviously serious, but also complex and historic, and there is an independent investigation underway at the media group which employed him during the relevant period. In the meantime, his freelance column with Mail Online has been paused. So they're confirming a lot of stuff here, actually. They're telling you, number one, that there is not just an independent investigation, but that there are actually multiple investigations going on because there are allegations that do hit the Daily Mail. There are allegations that hit the Sun. They're telling you, when we're looking at that, that is a complex investigation. It's complex, this stuff, because they're complex allegations, and they are. This isn't one rando that came out and said something. And again, clarifying that, I do not believe that quantity of allegations equals quality of allegation. Never believe that. Just because 10 people say somebody did something, that doesn't mean it's true. Big names, you'll have people want to bury them. I mean, you'll have people come out of the woodwork. You'll have people that revenge, fame, it could be anything. So you don't really, that doesn't mean anything. But some of the receipts that have dropped really do pose some interesting questions. And you notice, it's not just Dan. Okay, here's something that you'll see a lot of times in investigations like this too. Dan Wooten may not come out and say something because he's trying to stay behind his lawyer firewall. He's making sure to insulate himself, while they come up with their legal strategy, how they want to answer and stuff. But you'll have people that are close to said person. They'll come out. They'll make statements. Well, you notice that at the very beginning when this stuff started, you had that. You had a few people, but they weren't people that were really close to Wooten. That by itself I found really interesting. But as this has gone on, those voices, they're not returning to this subject. It's just like it was a one and done. And, it's a big enough issue for Dan Wooten that you would think the people, they'd be like, whoa, wait a minute, our boy's being canceled, help out, right? Help out, indeed. Horror Girl, thanks for the 15 months. It's all so beautiful. Everything comes full circle. Indeed. Hey, Barb, by the way, glad you're here too. Appreciate you. Yes, everything does come full circle. I mean, this is how it goes. This is an object lesson. I keep saying stuff. There are other topics that score bigger clicks than this kind of stuff, but this is important. And the reason that this stuff is very important is because the foundation that allows you don't want to go backwards and look at cases that have already happened. Like, say, the Depp case. It already happened, right? So you're not relitigating a case. He won, by the way. What you're doing is you're laying the foundation for the next one, because there will be, every day, there's another person that is accused. Some of them rightly so, some of them falsely so. But the people that have allowed this culture of cancellation to really exist, the arbiters of truth, they need object lessons where they understand that they can't get away with shit. And even if they did nothing wrong, they too can be accused. See, that's the lesson they need to understand. A lot of these folks, they think that they live in a world where if they were squeaky clean, they're good to go. But no, that's the whole thing with false allegations. You don't even have to know a person or be in a room with them. I've seen allegations thrown at people that they've never even met somebody. That's happened in huge cases that we've seen. That's happened in smaller cases. They've been launched at everything from voice actors and more. It happens all the time, and they need to learn that object lesson. Nikki, thanks for the 12 months. What a 12 months this has been. Love your work, Tuck. Respect from the UK. I know it's crazy. This last year has been insane. And again, like, I would just, for the titles of these videos, I would I wouldn't even say, oh, look, Depp Accuser. I would just say Dan Wooten. But unfortunately, if I do that, you can't find these videos right now because they are ghosted. They are being buried. I'm telling you, go under go in YouTube, go under something where you're not signed in. Just go under, a private anonymous filter, like use Brave or something, and look up Dan Wooten and see what you find. Because you're going to find a whole lot of. You may find a few outlets. Here's my problem with these kind of places too. They still control the narrative, and ultimately, I want the truth of what's happening here. Again, I talk about karma and everything else, but at the same time, I want to know. I want to know if there is indeed legitimacy to this stuff. I want to know because the same companies that control this narrative, they are culpable. They allowed this to happen. And this is how you take a wrecking ball to their institutions. If they have been protecting some monster behind the scenes for they always come in and say, allegations, those things were in the past. We don't do this stuff anymore. Well, if you find one that has been happening right now, they have people under non-disclosure agreements. They were actually protecting them for over a decade. Yeah. That's how you tear away their control. So it is very important that this stuff, it is not only covered, but that people can see what's happening. See, that's the insidious nature of all of this. Even when you find that that magic bullet, as it were, they control whether or not anyone knows about it. Mary Lou, thanks for the 14 there and the LOL. Indeed, it's crazy, isn't it? So the spokesperson did not immediately clarify whether Wooten would continue to be paid by Mail Online. The journalist is running a crowdfunder to pay for his legal fees. I'd be curious about this. If they stop paying him, that one of two ways. With his agreement, even though they're calling him a freelancer, I bet you money that he is on a salary for that. He's not coming in and just getting paid some freelancer fee with Mail Online. They actively sought him out. They wanted him because of his name, because of how much attention he could get. So he's definitely not, again, when they pause him, he doesn't just go to unpaid, like say a Barlow or somebody, like I was noting, they just disappear. No, when he's put on leave, are they stopping the money there? And if they're stopping that gravy train, that would be a huge answer too, because that would tell you something about the mindset that they have behind the scenes. So Wooten continues to present a nightly primetime show at the right wing. Again, these are their descriptors. I hate this. These are true in a way, conservative, liberal. I just anyway, that's the Guardian. See, they will go after him for political means, and they will politicize this topic. It took me a minute to spit out the word politicize. It was taking me a second. I get stumbling over it. Dreadnought, thanks for the 5. Maybe you should name the stream Trouble for Captain Hairplug, or Captain Hairplug Strikes Again. Yeah. I'll be like, yeah, can I plug in a few words here? Just like, that hairline. Wait, did I say that out loud? Oh, anyway. That's funny. Wooten continues to be, in a statement 2 weeks ago, he accepted having made mistakes in the past, but denied criminal wrongdoing. His lawyer has since told The Guardian Wooten denies many of the allegations that have been leveled. So here's a statement by the lawyer as well. This is, something that is new too. You say, for the avoidance of future or further doubt, our client did not at any time contact current or former colleagues at the Sun with offers of money in return for sexually explicit images. He did not engage in inappropriate behavior in the workplace, and he did not misuse News UK funds. So those are out and out denials. It will be fascinating. When you look at Here's a strange world too. Let me tell you how weird this is. Okay, when you're thinking about a lot of times when you look at people and believability, normally you'd say, well, stacked against this guy are two porn stars, an escort that has been in prison for extortion, another criminal that we know about. Actually, I think two criminals. Plus, you'd say, well, yeah, that looks bad. But then again, on the other side is Dan Wooten. I don't think I trust Dan Wooten any more than I trust that. And again, that doesn't mean you. That doesn't necessarily mean that somebody's a liar just because they've engaged in that. But when you think about how, when you think about the idea that somebody might lie, where they would come from. Again, you don't think truth in pornography. What I mean? You don't think that. But yet, I don't think about the sun in truth anymore. I think I would actually trust a porn star more than I would trust the sun. That's crazy. I mean, it's a crazy world, right? So there's a new Alex Truby actually went and did. He is the main accuser. Well, I'm not going to say the first accuser that came up for Dan Wooten. But before I show you that, I want to show you this. I like to keep a watch on this just to show you. Again, I think that Dan Wooten really does have a major problem. We talked about this yesterday. This is we're not going to read stuff from this. I just want to go to the amount of money here. So the amount of money is still frozen at the same place for Dan Wooten. He has not moved in days. That is a profound statement. You're talking about somebody, again, that is a very widely consumed journalist. I mean, very widely consumed. And a lot of people, even if he's not pushing his GoFundMe, the people around him, typically you would see you would see them trying to push and move it. And it hasn't moved. Again, I was looking back when I started watching that number, after that first announcement push, he made it eked up to 24%, and it did it pretty quickly. At 24%, it took it a couple of days to move one more percentage, and from there, it's been frozen. I mean, it's been frozen at 25%. It's like, despite all of those people that listen, despite all of those big name backers, maybe he threw in with the wrong crowd. Maybe throwing in with listening believers, maybe that wasn't a smart shake. Maybe it wasn't at all. Angela, thank you for the 3, by the way. You missed my 12-month membership Tugiversary. I missed your 12 months there. Sorry about that, Angela. I want to give you that 1 year shout out, by the way. Thank you. Thank you for being here for 1 year. I appreciate all of you too. If I miss anything or anything, I definitely don't want to do that. But thank you, Angela. Thanks. With subjects like this, again, these are ghosted topics. I know a lot. I'll get hit up by people that I know, and they'll be like, why not cover this? This is big clicks, And I'm like, I don't want to cover that. I want to cover this again, if we're going out and saying something actually matters, if there truly is an issue with this culture of cancellation, this is the only way to remedy it. Because dragging these things, the media pretending that they didn't have a part in that's not right. That's not right at all. They got to rewrite, and you think about what they've rewritten over time. They rewrote their part in Time's Up. They rewrote the entire thing there. You had over 70 freaking Hollywood celebrities get to walk away from the biggest trash fire scam that we have seen we have not seen a social scam at that level. At least since, I can't think of the last one, to be honest. I'm like, man, it should have been everywhere. And the only reason it got any coverage was because of politics. Cuomo, that's the only reason, because Roberta Kaplan got caught going after accusers when she's supposed to be a listening believer. She still isn't canceled, though, because they're the law firm that goes after the Orange Man. So all of your media, they still uphold that, but them pretending that they haven't been complicit, really, it's beyond complicity. They're responsible for this current media storm we've seen. And you can see the place that is exposing Dan Wooten, they actually made more money than Wooten did. They met their original goal, in fact. Their original goal was something like, I can't remember the exact number. It may have been 30,000 right in there, but they decided to up it to 75 because they said, well, we can continue, to engage. We can continue to get money. I'm not going to back them either. That's you can see they're like, well, given the volume of information and the people coming forward, both in this case of apparent media abuse and others, we're extending that. So they did extend that number. And I'm not telling you that I won't back these folks. Again, I won't back any of them. There's a handful of journalists that I do trust. There are a few that I do think are responsible. I'm not saying that you can have bias and stuff too. If you look at things and you think something says the truth, you're obviously I'm not out here just to cover a flat topic. I'm out here to give my opinion on something. I'm not a journalist either, but none of them do that. They all give opinions too. So there are a few that make that clear too. Now, there's one other thing before we look at the Alex Truby thing. I want to show you. So I showed you something yesterday, but I want to show you where it came from because this was actually a confused topic, and a few people, they didn't catch that. What's up, Gene, by the way? Thanks for the 4 months. I often wonder if Danny was involved in any of the party videos a clown seems to love making. That's a fascinating question, isn't it? Hey, Kitty, thanks for the 8 months. Tug. Emily D. Baker says, StreamYards are now tracking membership milestone chats. So play with that app. Okay, thank you. I didn't know that tracked it. Thank you for that. I didn't know that it did. And Die for JD, thanks for the 24 months. Thanks for the 2 years there. Happy to see Dan Wooten in the hot seat. What are you doing, kiddo? What you doing, kiddo?
And Sister Dana get me milk. No.
Really? She didn't get you what?
Milk.
You want a drink? You can go here. You can have a drink of my drink. There you go. All right. Now you have to go upstairs, though. There you go. Go upstairs. You can have some more later. If you go upstairs and play for a little while, you can have some more later, okay?
And then I go sleeping one time.
I know. You've been a good girl. So you go play. Hey, you want to take the oxalotl?
Where's Sissy left that here?
I don't know. She left it just because you want to take it upstairs, huh?
What's that mean?
Here. I don't know.
That?
Oh, that's a thing I'm going to look at.
I have a
All
Coke right there.
No. Okay, go have fun, okay?
Okay.
You go watch your TV, okay?
I drank a Coke.
Drink a Coke. Yeah, you go. Go. Have fun. All right. Love you.
You have a new Coke?
Huh?
But you got it.
Yeah, I've got a new Coke, yes. You go and have fun. She does have a Coke. She's trying to get my Coke. That's what that is all about. You got a Coke? I'm like, no, I don't have a Coke for you. Sorry. She's so funny with that. Miss C, thanks for the 6 months. No statement there, but plenty of statement and back. Thank you for your backing there. Appreciate that. But this right here, okay, if people missed it, there was actually an item that I brought up yesterday, and there was a little bit of confusion on where it came from. A lot of people, they hear Confider. I keep saying Collider, which is a different outlet. Confider, they don't know who that is. This is the Daily Beast. So the Daily Beast is actually the place. I don't trust the Daily Beast either. I've actually had a hit piece. This is the problem with Dan Wooten. Again, if Wooten wasn't such a scumbag about blaming other people and trying to destroy their lives, a lot of these outlets, I'd be like, yeah, you take them as what they are. I don't see any difference in the Daily Beast and a Gawker personally. They're just their future. What they are future cancellations. They will get shut down inevitably, but They're still there. But with Dan Wooten, so they had their exclusive here, and I do believe this. I talked about this yesterday. They said that some staffers, they're trying to get Dan Wooten fired at the Daily Mail. I've actually, so I was talking to some people about this, tried to track down the legitimacy of any claims. And from what I'm understanding, oh, yeah, there's been some significant backlash because it's not just, to make this clear, I've not heard anyone saying, yeah, I'd like that guy fired because he did X, Y, or Z to me. But from what I understand with that, there are a lot of people that do not like Dan Wooten, first of all. They just don't like him straight up. And on top of that, as far as the competitive field, Dan Wooten falling would be great for some folks. It'd be perfect for them. So yes, there is a lot of noise. I mean, you think about this. If you think about the climate here, if an NBC would allow people like a Cat Tenbarge to go after a lawyer that represented JD, with Camille Vasquez, and try to bury them internally, spread it around the newsroom, you can imagine the state of these places, even though that's illegal in pretty much any country, harassment and more. Yeah, that's still the state of newsrooms. They sound like middle schools or high schools. They sound like and I mean, really, when you look at these tech journalists, the Tenbarges and the Lorenzes, maybe that's a reflection of the culture they bring in. But you look at the Daily Mail, you look at a lot of the contributors there. Oh, yeah, they're definitely people that would cancel you in a heartbeat. Dan Wooten would have been one of them. So, with people speaking up about it, for sure. Here's one of the quotes, by the way. I don't want to reread this. I just wanted to place this where it came from. Because, again, this came from the Daily Beast, which tells you there are a lot of places with names. When the Guardian, they're getting involved. You're having, you're having a dozen or so other places finally picking up any kind of story. Places like the Daily Beast are sniffing around it. This is definitely a problem for Woot. A big one there. What's up, Garrett? Thanks for the 3 there. No statement attached, but plenty of statement. Thank you for that. Heather, too. Thanks for the 13 months. It's been a whirlwind 13 months. I've enjoyed the ride. Me too. I've enjoyed this. I mean, it's sad that a person has to have their life wrecked and ruined because of it. But I've enjoyed watching the turnaround. In the last year, we've seen almost everyone, whether that's a Chris Boozy and Spoutable. I mean, it's just become a place where he has a fan club now. That's all that is. Chris Boozy went from a quoted media source, destroying people the world over. He was propped up in politics and more, to being relegated to a platform that can't grow. He's created a small echo chamber, and he keeps going after other people and kicking them off. There's been 2 more high-profile ones that have happened. You also have, I mean, you look at the Barlows begging for change on the sidewalk, hoping that they can find some money. You look at the AH, all the problems, the insurance companies. You look at all the people that surround her, and then the Dan Wootens. I mean, it is an absolute trash fire of madness. Joetta, thanks for the 20 there. I wonder if Dan's downfall will affect the JD court decision. I should probably try to ask Black Belt Barrister. At one time, he was working on an appeal. Yeah, I remember that. That's actually a good question for a few of the lawyers out there. People should, and again, the question in that is also whether or not JD would want to go back to that. He's cleared his name. He's cleared it worldwide. So would he want to go back to the courtroom? I mean, that would be a big question there, because it's stress anyway. I mean, his I would say no. I would say as far as his choice, he probably wouldn't do that because he left with a win. I mean, it's winning isn't just the courtroom win. It's knowing when to take the exit and when to bow out. And he left on a high note that reestablishes his name and his dominance in entertainment, as far as legacy and more. So, but then again, maybe that does bother. I mean, it would bother me, but it would. I don't know. We just have to see. That'd be a good question, though. John, thanks for the 5. Ricada posted an update video on Monty. Haven't watched it yet because it's an hour plus long, but looking forward to it. Yeah, actually, I've already prepped a video for tomorrow to talk about one part of that is absolutely hilarious. So we will have a video tomorrow. I've already started it. That talks about a piece of that. I mean, there is a hilarious part, but definitely check out Ricada, the lawsuit. That's something we'll go over that in a live stream too, for sure. But byline news: Alex Truby. Alex Truby again is the ex-partner of Dan Wooten that said that they found a carry-all locked behind a washing machine, and they pretty much attached his name to a lot of crazy. So let's see what he has to say. I haven't read this yet. Okay. I've been waiting because I want to read it live. Alex Truby is the former partner of GB News' biggest rating puller, Dan Wooten, the New Zealand journalist who has made a career out of invading private lives and passing public judgment for big bucks. Indeed, I think that's a fair descriptor. From Prince Harry to Meghan Markle, to Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, from Philip Schofield to pop star Duncan James and the late tragic Carolyn Flack, Wooten was Rupert Murdoch's celebrity attack dog for more than a decade. Now, that's a fascinating inclusion, by the way. This is a place that decided that they would go after the JD fans, as they said. They threw in with the same media circus, that everyone else had going on at the time. They essentially threw in with supporters of evidence bad, that whole narrative right when the courtroom decision was coming in. Well, now they're crediting the guy who started all of that shit. They're crediting him as Rupert Murdoch's attack dog. You can't have it both ways. Let me say that to a place like this. You can't have it both ways. You can't come in and look at somebody who wins in a courtroom when they actually go head to head with somebody. You can't fucking have it both ways. So when instead of cleaning his clothes one fateful day in 2012, 2012, isn't that when the world was supposed to end? The whole Aztec calendar and stuff. You remember that? The world's gonna end, be the Aztecs. They've done it. Well, apparently, I guess it did on one tragic day for Dan Wooten. Mr. Truby happened, he says, upon Wooten's own dirty laundry. His conscience simply would not let him take the easy path of turning a blind eye, as many others have done since. I like that, by the way. I like the condemnation that comes in. I actually like that tone, looking down your nose at other journalists and saying, yeah, you gave this guy a pass. Well, this dude didn't. He's not even like you. Come on, what's your problem? In the first ever interview, Mr. Truby, gently spoken and determined with a pronounced sense of fair play, relates the events that led to Byline Time's special 3-year investigation being published last month. And yeah, that's the thing I would say with a lot of these places too. That's the one question I would love levied against any of these folks. Why did it take 3 years? I wish Byline would answer that. Why did it take 3 years? Why were you waiting for the opportune moment to launch that when people would pay attention? I could understand that, but on the other side of that, I don't necessarily think that makes someone a hero if you sit on your hands and wait for the biggest click moment, as it were. So I would really like to know why, and for the Guardian too, if they knew that there was this huge Martin branding issue, which is going to come up, why did it take 3 years to talk about it? I mean, that's a lot. When you think about that, They could change the fortunes because it looks more conspiratorial sometimes, because that could have changed the fortunes in court cases and more. You could have actually, if people would have talked about all of that, it could have changed it could change the outcomes where people have made some very tragic decisions. It could have stopped the growth of this person. So, I mean, really, why so long? And that's not, I'm not trying to look down my nose at any of that. I would like to know why that is. So in his first interview ever last month, this newspaper's reports have exposed Wooten as a serial sexual catfisher, blackmailer. He is definitely not. He's definitely not that. Black feller. That's hilarious. Black feller. Sorry. Professional. Oh, that's really good. I'm trying to imagine Dan Wooten trying to pass himself. He's like, why they're coming for me? It's not just political. It's also because I'm a person of color. That's the image that I had for a minute. I was like, no, you are not, Dan. You are not. Black feller. Blackmailer and prolific workplace bully, all of which the presenter denies. Sexy toes. I like that they dance across the screen when I say something crazy sometimes. Heather, thank you for those 5 gifted memberships. Perfect time there too. Thank you for that. I love, all of you, when you get a membership, like I said, you got all the emojis there. Check them out. You get fun with all that. Okay, let's get back to that. Thank you, Heather. Byline Times has asked its representatives on numerous occasions to confirm and deny whether Dan Wooten is or connected to Martin Branning, but has received no response. But for Alex Truby, it all began behind the big double doors of the laundry cupboard. This sounds like we're going to get into like a really interesting book. It all began behind the big double doors of the laundry cupboard in Dan Wooten's former one-bedroom flat on whatever street that is. I don't know the place, so it doesn't. The postcode doesn't mean anything to me. What's up, Fallen Hero? Thanks for the gifted membership too. Appreciate you every day. Appreciate you, my friend, for real. And also, John, what's up, John? Thank you again, John, for 10 gifted memberships. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thanks, John, too. I very much appreciate you. A cat sitting discovery. I was cat sitting for Dan while he was on holiday in New Zealand. Mr. Truby explains. One day, I was doing some laundry. I was looking for the dowsing ball, for the washing up powder, and put my hand down the side of the washing machine, and there was a hold all rammed down there. I would always wondered exactly how he found that. By the way, these sentences are very clunky. The way is it just me, or is this clunkily written? It's written for dramatic effect. It feels like, but it's clunky. So you have to excuse me. I'll probably mess up a few times. When I read something, like if I'm going to write something down, I try to write it in a way like it's meant to be read aloud, Intrigued and suspicious, Mr. Truby says he pulled at the black nylon and found the bag zipped and secured. I could tell it had stuff in it. It wasn't just an unused sports bag or something, and my immediate reaction was that it was hiding something. So I pulled it out completely and found there was a little travel padlock with the holes in the zips met. So that's how he actually found it. I'd wondered where they came from. By the way, Sandra, thank you. Welcome. Thank you for the membership. Welcome to Tugs. Thank you. And Sandra, also, thank you for 5 gifted memberships. Those are lovely to watch rain in. Thank you. Thank you all. There's so many of you up there too. Thank you. Thank you for helping me expose that he is definitely not a person of color. I swear, or what a man said. So I thought, okay, this is weird. And because it was a flexible bag, I crumpled it to get the zip open wide enough to get my hand fully inside, and I started pulling stuff out. Amongst other personal items, Mr. Truby says he found computer storage drives. There were also 2 external hard drives, and I was very interested in those. I plugged one in, and there was one file I was drawn to because I recognized the name as someone who was a friend of Dan's. So that's where it gets interesting. Like, why exactly did you go down that rabbit hole? Well, it seems strange. I found it out of the blue. I found a bunch of external hard drives. So I decided to plug them in, and I knew a specific name on that. That name was a friend of Dan's. Huh. That's kind of that's kind of fascinating. What's up, Ray? Thanks for the 2. While Truby was cat sitting, Wooten was catfishing. Oh my God, that's good. It's Snuggle Struggle. Thanks for the 10. Wooten was Murdoch's celebrity attack dog. No wonder Fox fired Tucker. Controlled opposition. Fox uses prop to mislead conservatives to play the monster, divide and conquer. Hasbanoff warned us all. Yes, and actually, that is a very legitimate statement, I think. These major places, they want controlled opposition. They want to divide and conquer. They want you fighting with each other. They want you fighting over politics, even if you're on the same political spectrum. They want you fighting with each other because nothing like this ever comes up. That is indeed true. So I started to dig into this one folder, and there was a video and a text file, which I opened first. It was the transcript of a MSN Messenger conversation between 2 people. One was Martin Branning, whose name I'd never heard before, and the other was a boyfriend of the person whose name was on the file. The transcript was between the boyfriend and Martin Branning. Branning was introducing himself as someone who was interested in making some sexual content. The transcript was essentially persuading the boyfriend. So it wasn't the person that Dan knew, just to make this clear. It wasn't the person that would end up being a colleague of Dan. It's the boyfriend of that person that's being talked to here to make a video without the consent of partner, if necessary. The video file was exactly what I expected based on the transcript. It was a wide shot of a bed from a camera put up high in order, I immediately thought, for it not to be seen. It was of 2 people. They were having sex. I took it from the video that Wooten's target had no knowledge or consent of that being made at all. And again, if you read over what that person said happened, essentially they were down on their luck. They had no money. They were approached by Martin Branning online. This is what the person they're talking about, the boyfriend, as it were. They were approached. They started doing illicit material. They would have cameras brought to them by messenger. So there was no direct contact with the person there. They would have money delivered to them, and people would come over and they would film. The way I took that, I'm wondering again, the catfishing partners, the alleged 2 porn stars that were involved. I wonder if they were involved with that person as well. But it looks like all of that was a long game to go after this coworker of Dan Wooten. That's what they're saying there. Basically, he was paying £5,000 a week to this person to do illicit material until they got them so far involved in it that they asked them to do something with their boyfriend, and to do it again without their consent. Make a video, do not let that be seen. And if you don't, they were going to dump everything everywhere. It's what you see over and over again with a lot of these hookups turned blackmail schemes. We've seen this repeatedly over time. And unfortunately, people get in situations where, I mean, 5,000 pounds, that's a lot of money. Holy crap. I mean, if you think about that, I mean, that is a lot of money. I mean, in a place like that, a couple of months of that's a good year wage in a lot of, in a lot of places like these small towns out here. So again, I mean, you're talking about sums that people didn't question because they were desperate. And then, well, again, long game. I wonder how long that went on. We didn't get a time frame on it either, but I've always wondered. John, thanks for the 10. Sad times, cracking the box. Posted a 3-minute plus video this afternoon. Some footage of Captain Corey's funeral. At least he burned bright in his short time on this earth. I need to check that out for sure. Thank you for noting that. I don't get any notifications for this channel. I have to go in. I send my love to the family there too. They've been, I'll say this, they've been very appreciative of everybody's support. They've been very appreciative. They were appreciative before. They're very appreciative, and they notice it, and it does help. I'm not saying directly, man, but just tell people that with like Captain Corey, like give them love, give them the support, because this is a rough time there. But for sure, I'm glad you mentioned that, because like I said, I didn't get any notification with it at all. Now, at the time, Mr. Truby had been in a relationship with Wooten on and off for about 3 years. He said he was stunned by the discovery. Remember, Alex Truby is the person that Dan Wooten just flat out, he accused of being his abuser. So he did the same thing we have seen other people do. When they get accused, he turns around, he flipped the script, and he said, no, this person, they're monster. That's essentially, it's become the go-to playbook. We've seen people like again, an Amber Heard introduce that. And I'm not saying those allegations are real, but it very well looks like that. It looks like the go-to playbook of flipping that script. One of them did it. When you look at the allegations with that, one of them definitely flipped the script. If Truby was indeed accosting Dan Wooten, then they decided to come out and blame them. It's weird. Like, why now? Why out of the blue? Why now? I always look at things, when there's allegations, this person is doing X, Y, or Z. Why would it have been right now? Because I couldn't find a moment before that said this is the perfect time to weaponize. In fact, for some reason, social media picked it up, but that was just a random thing. You saw more people come out of the woodwork, as it were, with that in the aftermath. But again, if that were the case, why now? Dan Wooten tried to say, oh, well, it's because of quote unquote dark forces and leftists, but he's alleging a giant conspiracy behind the scenes with so many pieces there, so many random pieces. It just seems, I mean, it would have to be a very reaching conspiracy for that to be true. Dreadnought, thanks for the 2. Remember, they were paid with Dan's super sweaty 20s. That's indeed too. They also said that when the messenger came and brought them money, that they were getting sweaty 20s, 50s, or whatever. Sweaty. I was like, gross. Gross, the descriptor for it. Ugh. They couldn't give you clean money from the bank. They had to sweat all over it first. Ugh. I had always known Dan was obsessive about this person, and I never found it healthy. Like, this is a interesting statement too, because it doesn't just sound like a power move. It sounds like a power move, not for what I mean is a power move. It would be a power move, but it's more of I want you power move, not I want power over you as far as career is concerned. I mean, the allegation with that. My immediate gut reaction was that Dan Branning. Maybe I should call him Dan Branning. Mark Branning did not exist. It didn't make sense. How could it have come to Dan's possession? And I knew that Dan was already obsessive about this target. I knew Dan was Branning and that he had manipulated the partner into making the video. I felt sick to my stomach. Dan was my boyfriend. I was horrified. And when Dan came back to the UK, I confronted him about it. He didn't even try to deny it. I said to him, Martin Branning doesn't exist. It's you. And he fell on his knees and said, I'm sorry. I really effed up. I can't help it. It was him. He did it. And from that day, I've known 100% that Martin Branning does not exist. He is just a name and an MSN account and email that Dan had been using to fix stuff for himself. Now, you notice that statement there, which I think is again, fix stuff for himself. The revelation marked the beginning of the end of the relationship that limped on for another year, but never recovered from what Mr. Truby regards as a terrible betrayal, both of those in the film and himself. I stayed with Dan because Dan emotionally blackmailed me all the time. Whenever I tried to leave, he would say I was deserting him at a time of crisis. He controlled me. He watched and monitored me. I caught him accessing my emails and snooping on my social media. I feared him. And, just to be, it sounds like they both snooped on each other. I mean, to be honest, again, I would be curious if I went over and I found a carry-all with some external hard drive hidden. But my first assumption wouldn't be plug it in and find out what the fuck it is. I would probably ask about it if I were curious, So it doesn't sound good there. And on the other side, he's saying, yeah, every time that I got up the stones to walk away, it was a time of crisis. There was something terrible going on. I had to be there for support, and that he watched and monitored me. Accessing my email. They also said that some of the things that he was doing, accessing and more, he was doing that under his work accounts. Enabled the worst parts of him and amplified them. It wasn't always this way. When Alex Truby first met Wooten, 3 years his junior, as a fresh-faced 23-year-old in London, they quickly became friends. Wooten was still a journalist, greenhorn, freshly arrived from New Zealand and working for the television industry magazine Broadcast. Mr. Truby was still embarking on his own career. Everything was possible for them, and they became close friends. But after a couple of years knowing each other platonically, and as Truby's relationship with the man he describes as, at the time, the love of my life ran into trouble, he said Wooten began to pressurize him for more. I thought Dan was my best mate, but he put me under immediate pressure to move forward with him. I was asking for time and space, but I got ultimatums. I was put in a position. He said, we either get together or I'm gone from your life completely. I was vulnerable. I had just lost what I thought was the love of my life, and suddenly I was going to lose my best mate too. I didn't even have time to grieve the relationship. I found myself tumbling into a relationship with Dan. Mr. Truby says that the change in Wooten, once he left Broadcast in 2007 for Rupert Murdoch's most feared tabloid, the now defunct News of the World, was profound. And the News of the World, by the way, is a nasty bit of history. I mean, if you want to really get into the scope of that, when they say the most feared tabloid, they are very much true there. I mean, this is a place that prided itself on outing and destroying folks. They would do anything. They had no boundaries, no integrity. What a terrible place. I mean, if you want to feel for everything that goes wrong in quote unquote journalism, the tabloid side of it especially, although sometimes I can't tell the difference between tabloid and mainstream. But if you want to see it gone wrong, you look at News of the World and really ask yourself when you're looking at it, what's the difference between a place like that and Gawker? Nothing. Nothing at all. What's the difference between them and the Sun? Nothing, really. Nothing at all. I mean, you're talking about people, they were accused of bugging celebrities, as in, not as in computerized stuff, not as in, hey, let me pester you. But when I first met him, the biggest stories he did were about who picked up TV rights for this or that show. It was very different to the news of the world. But working for Murdoch, that environment, which was very ruthless, very cutthroat, very competitive for the biggest stories, it changed him. It enabled the worst parts of him and amplified them. He was so driven by the pressure there that after a while, it was everything. He became one of their biggest ever platformers, getting all of these splashes or front pages. He would get very angry if he ever felt screwed over on a story. He would make moves against colleagues to stop them from sharing bylines with him. If he ever had credit to share, if he ever had to share credit for his story, he wouldn't like it. He got mad about that. You have to wonder too if that approach right there is one of the reasons that a lot of people have decided, hey, it's game over for Dan Woot. You do have to wonder. He was very, very, very focused on getting his name on the front page of News of the World week after week, as many times as he could possibly get it on there. And his bosses loved him for that and rewarded it, of course. The toxicity of that paper, which everyone knows about now, it has been shut down, probably did push him into deploying bad tactics. But I think by nature, you're either capable of that kind of ruthlessness or not. Something came together there. There was pressure, and because of his ambition, he was capable of it. Wooten's growing power at the then most read newspaper in the English-speaking world led to practices which Alex Truby now regard as potentially corrupt, and which gave Wooten the financial power to further his own interests. Dan had the News of the World pay money to my bank account as a source, an absolute minimum of 10 times. Now, here's another allegation that he was creating fake sources. So you had one on a Johnny Depp Amber Heard story, which was an allegation that during his blackmail schemes that he had paid somebody, that he had the son pay £1,500. Well, here's allegations that Alex Truby was paid an absolute minimum of 10 times through the same thing. And the problem with that, these should be, see, this story is so crazy that stuff like this, it gets buried in the backdrop. And this is the kind of stuff that really should be called into question. Because if somebody is indeed manufacturing some of the biggest stories out there, stories which are credited to driving people to the end, yeah, I think more people should be all over that. I'd love to see some proof of those allegations right there. He told me it was for his actual sources, and I knew his boss knew who I was, so I didn't question it too much. It was never life-changing sums, always hundreds, not thousands, but still big lumps. I didn't really understand his world. I just thought it was normal for reporters to do sometimes in order to protect people's confidences. He was basically saying, no, I'm diverting this money over to you so I can keep my sources intact. I don't want to expose them. That's the way he's saying this there. I would give money to him, and I don't know what happened to it after that. He had other friends who'd do it for him too. So the allegation is not just Alex Truby getting money multiple times, other friends getting payoffs for fake sourcing. I mean, because again, these places, I mean, these scandals have come up, like I said, they have rocked the journalism world. There's that show, what is it called? Shattering Glass. It's actually pretty good if you've never seen it. But I mean, they cover, like, they've gotten big enough that movies have been made about some of it. To try to paint me as abusive is abusive. So when the News of the World shut down in disgrace in 2011 amidst the phone hacking scandal, remember when I say that is an issue that rocked News of the World to the point that they're no longer around. Wooten moved first to the Daily Mail as an editor-at-large before returning to Murdoch's fold with Sun titles. He eventually moved on from the Sun in 2021 after falling out with editor Victoria Newton and found himself at GB News, where Mr. Truby says he turned his back on a long background of left-leaning personal politics. That's fascinating too, because what he's saying is, for everybody that his news stance since he's been at GB News is that he's the anti-woke. Again, he is a right-leaning conservative voice taking on the establishment when that he worked for that establishment. He worked for places out there that, yeah, they're saying, well, he abandoned any of that. And, listen and believe. It's interesting. I wonder sometimes if some of these moves they come as trying to insulate, because if this stuff does end up being true, what better way to mask yourself from criticism than to say, no, before I was all these things, but now this is the true me, because this social media landscape, it's poisonous. The one he created. What there's no better way to try to hide yourself than something like that. But when I knew him, his politics were center to center left. He was always so proud that one of his first breaks was interviewing Helen Clark, who was of the Labour Prime Ministers in New Zealand. Dan came from a family of liberal people. His family are educators. When I knew him, his politics were the same as theirs. I never got an inkling from him that he would ever align with himself with the hard right. I always hate those descriptors, dude. The hard right, What's up? Amanda, thank you for the 8 months. Tug, say hi to Lola. Hi to Lola. I was looking right at the chat there, so that's funny. I think he was faking it on GB News for the money, because he burned so many bridges in the mainstream media. They're out and out saying, I don't think he's really the thing that he presents himself on with GB News. They're calling him a fraud. They're saying, yeah, I lived with him. These were his politics before. Now he's faking it for the money. Mr. Truby looks back with regrets on the 4 years from 2009 to 2013 he spent with old Danny Wooten. I wish I'd been braver. I wish I'd walked away sooner. I wish I hadn't given him so much of what should have been the amazing part of my life. However, I did, and I'm over it. I'm not here for some kind of personal revenge. I don't know where it got special. Some kind of personal revenge against Dan, or for how I was mistreated. I'm not that kind of person. And that's really answering the allegations from Dan Wooten, that he's there for revenge against him. And it's all a conspiracy from the leftist politics. Again, I think that's what that is. Claire, thanks for the 2. GB News, the people nobody wants to see on TV anymore. I've never, to be clear about this, I don't tune into really any of those places. And what I mean is any of them, along the spectrum of any of the, because I know when I'm looking at something. I know, and I think most people know. They know the game there. The problem is the game gets so nasty sometimes that when it becomes about a political topic, you can't tell anything about it. But that is bled over into sometimes like justly, sometimes correctly. It bleeds over into entertainment and other sectors. But the powerful platform Wooten enjoys with GB News allowed the presenter to launch a live on-air attack after the first part of this newspaper's investigation was published on Byline Times. Its journalists and others, he alleges, erroneously are part of the hard left campaign to have the channel, quote unquote, canceled. Mr. Truby, who had already written about the hold all revelation in a viral Twitter thread was attacked by his former partner as abusive live on air. That's true, by the way. He did. He called him his abuser. And, when GB News wrote about it too, what was fascinating, all these places that defend Dan Wooten, they talked about him. He was there holding back tears. And, I was like, really? Because I didn't see that, I mean, he didn't seem emotional at all. He seemed like he didn't like being the center of a story, and I wouldn't blame him for that. I wouldn't want to be the center of a story either like that. I mean, hit pieces are fine. Not that kind of hit piece. Those kind of hit pieces are just insidious. They're nasty stuff. But he went after him with that, with Wooten making strong allegations that Alex Truby had previously threatened him with violence. And he did, by the way. He said that. He said that he had threatened him with violence. Speaking of Byline Times, Mr. Truby candidly addressed Wooten's allegations. To try to paint me as abusive is abusive in itself. It was an extension of his behavior when we were together. I know I'm no abuser, and I'm square with that. I still share a dog with my most recent ex. I am close friends with the two before that. I'm in very happy and supportive relationship now. Does that not remind you of a again, people that Dan Wooten has backed? Like the allegation in that, it sounds just like, so when you looked at the AH playbook, like I said, if you look at JD's exes, all of his exes, they speak highly of him. I mean, and yet you find what were co-opted stories, the flipping of the script, as it were, saying, oh, yeah, all that stuff you went through. Well, you were actually the monster. Yeah. Now, on the alleged threat of violence, Mr. Truby says, on more than one occasion, Dan targeted my friends online. And knowing what I did about Martin Branning, I was scared of what Dan would do. Something did happen not long after to TV presenter Carolyn Flack died around February 2020. Man, God, that happened so long ago. That was a terrible incident, by the way. And what's crazy about that incident is the fiance, he came out. He had a lot to say. He made a lot of allegations about Wooten. And Wooten went after him in the courtroom. And this guy, he ends up, because of his statements, he ends up doing jail time. Makes you wonder, with everything going on, if maybe, revisiting some of those statements, maybe those are in order. Because, like I said, and he made statements. They were like, well, those are threats. And he was like, no, this is the way I'm angry. I feel angry. And Wooten was saying, no, he stalks me, stalks on my social media and more. And this coming from people, when you look at what a lot of these so-called journalists do, I think like when you look at Taylor Lorenz, for example, you look at their behavior. Okay, they can go to somebody's door. They can harass them. They can say they were part of an insurrection. They can go out and say that they endangered children. They can do all of this insanity. But somehow, in some way, that's okay because that's journalistic. That's journalistic integrity, blah, blah, blah. But if they get blowback, if somebody gets pissed off because all of that stuff that drives somebody to the ultimate end, and oh boy, they're surprised. I'm surprised they didn't get, even nastier blowback. Just to be honest, I'm surprised they didn't. I'm surprised something hasn't happened that would be. It would be a terrible tragedy, but I'm still surprised nothing has ever happened to these accusers out there. When we heard about. We heard during the, I guess it was in May. Yeah, I can't remember if it's April or May. The director of JD's newest film, when they were like, oh, well, that person, yeah, they ended up pulling the hair of the editor of the place that basically went after her ex, her family, and more with allegations that have been dropped. Yeah, I'm surprised something hasn't. I'm no way in shape or form encouraging that. That would be a terrible thing, but I'm surprised that it hasn't happened. But anyway, I saw Dan crying what I thought were crocodile tears about Carolyn. It galled me. So I tweeted briefly about the hold all discovery. I deleted the post after about 8 hours. I had a call from a mutual contact who put pressure on me on Dan's behalf. Later, Dan's lawyers started following me on social media. It felt intentional to silence me with legal threats. Yeah, that would absolutely be an unspoken threat. If the lawyers for somebody, they start following you on social media, that's telling you, yeah, you better not say anything. You better not say this. That's very much a statement. At the exact same time, Dan went after someone very close to me. It felt predatory and intentional. I didn't see any choice but to act. And yes, I messaged him. And yes, I told him to stay the F away from my friends. And in the heat of the moment, I used strong words, but just words. I'm not a violent person. Mr. Trumy is still bruised by Wooten's on-air verbal assault. He said what Dan Wooten said was he said that his ex-boyfriend had written to me and admitted that he was a psychopath and had threatened to my throat. So that's actually what Wooten's statement, that's in his fundraiser too. That's there. So those were the allegations that he presented against Alex Truby. The moment I saw that, I felt sick. It was scary. I knew that he was going to hit back at me for speaking out. That's in character with the man I know. But to try and call me an abuser live on TV when I could find 100 character references to the contrary, that I didn't see coming. And I still can't believe his bosses let it happen. It's deranged. I wonder if his bosses, you would think that legal would have prepped some of the statements. But again, I wonder if the bosses actually knew that he was going to link his journalistic livelihood, him surviving all of this, to GB News. I wonder if that was an add-on. Despite the deeply personal ad hominem abuse, a new national newscaster allowed Wooten to bring down on a former partner. Alex Truby is remaining calm and committed to the truth. I'm hoping the story goes somewhere, he says. I'm hoping the right people look at what has gone on and that people learn the truth. And that is it. Now, like I said, there are other stories too. There's one, I don't think I'm going to cover this tonight though, but I do want to. So there was a story that popped up today. Actually, there's a new part to this, but like I said, just shoving these all together, it doesn't allow people to really drink in what's being said. But in a new part, the Dan Wooten and Martin Branning, the proof, and this, a 7th part came up today. I haven't read it yet. Like I said, I think it'll make a great live stream to go over because when I look at it again, I try to look at what the chat has to say about this stuff to see exactly what's being mentioned here and how people are taking that. And again, like I said, these are allegations. Like don't get that twisted when you look at this. The proof that substantiates, there's some interesting, I'm going to say, screenshots of conversations. There's some fascinating discussions that have gone back and forth, but we're being told that a lot of that information, a lot of what makes these claims true is either stuck behind non-disclosure agreements because there's the allegation that they exist at the Sun, which again, that would be its own That would be its own proverbial can of worms, opening that stuff up, finding out why that happened, what went on, and more. But then they said, I can't remember if they said there were a dozen or over a dozen. I can't remember the exact qualifier for that with allegations. They had turned all of that stuff over to the police. And again, we don't have access to that dossier. We don't have access to this information. We have not seen. See, what I'd like to know is how much, if accounts were utilized to go in and to be used for catfishing per se, somebody was weaponizing 2 accounts over time. These platforms, even if you delete all of that, that is still kept. It is still backed up. So that would be retrievable. And I wonder, like I said, are we just talking about accusations that have been turned over, or is there more? Is there more substantiation? Again, we saw screenshots that do make it look like, give me 1 minute. I'm pulling up. I lost the chat for a second. I'm sorry. Claire, thanks for doing. Ooh, 7-part got receipts, does it? Let's look at it. Let's look at it. Let me roll down through here. Let me see. Receipts. I don't see receipts on there. I don't see any, but maybe they link to something. We'll read it though. We'll go through it. But my point in all of that is, again, the reason I say it like that, allegations. I'm not saying somebody could allege something and it not be true. But in this day and age, you have to be so careful with accusations because they're just bandied about. It's the easiest way to take somebody down. That's why out of any of the things that happen in media or social media, the culture of accusation, that's the thing that is the most terrifying because it can happen to anyone. It can happen at any time. You don't even have to know people that are attached. When I was covering the Vic Mignogna stuff, there was a voice actor. I remember this playing out very well. So there was a voice actor that had allegations come up on, I believe it was Reddit. It was very detailed, very person and not just person specific, but also allegation specific. They were saying this person, they did X, Y, and Z to me. This happened at blah, blah, blah time. And that turned out to be the person behind that. When confronted with the threat of litigation, they not only apologized for it, but they revealed the fact that they had never met that said voice actor. They just knew them in the middle of this hurricane of accusations against another voice actor. They decided, hey, this would be good for them. They did that. So you don't even have to have met this person. They know your name. They can make up, either allegations that you did something to someone else, or that they've heard rumors that you did something to someone else, or that you did something to them. So I'm very careful about that. The presentation of this, I mean, it's such a bizarre landscape. But people like Dan Wooten created this landscape. That's the problem with everything. They created it. They helped it go forward. They weaponized it again and again. They didn't just create it because, I blame a lot of outlets for doing that too. But unlike, say, an outlet that is just reporting on something, and that's okay. You can talk about something that's going on. You make it very clear these are allegations alone. They're not substantiated. Unlike that, a Dan Wooten would go further. Because, like they said, with him being a celebrity attack dog for the Sun, by its very nature, would want to have more. And that more it manifests into some insanity. I mean, it's just some out and out insane things that these people did. Like I said, they would go in, they would try to ruin people's lives. They would try to destroy them at every turn. They would try to weaponize careers and more. And Wooden did it for a long time. If you look through everything again, I'm sure that he feels that it's unfair that he has been suspended by the Daily Mail, and yet he's called for those same moves against other people. He said, again, with the Philip Schofield stuff. I mean, this was happening. I bring that up. I bring it up a lot because that was happening while all of this was starting to swirl. But I mean, he said, with the current rumors and accusations swirling around about Philip Schofield, why is he still on our screens? Why have ITV not suspended him pending an internal inquiry? I would have thought in this day and age that a mainstream broadcaster such as ITV ought to be seen doing all it can to deal with issues like this, find out where the truth lies, and in the meantime, suspend those who the rumors concern. And you notice the wording there. The wording's fascinating because he refers to this stuff as rumor. And it is, they're accusations alone. But Dan had made it very clear that even in his quote unquote anti-woke stance, the one where he says we should stand against this stuff, he's saying that they should be suspended based on rumor. And man, I mean, again, how things have changed. I'm going to end on one more statement. I want to put one thing in here because I think when people run across this, they need to understand what is said. I always like returning to Dan's own words because Dan went from statements like that to when he had all of this aimed, when he's being canceled, rightly or unjustly, still when he's being canceled, he's saying, no. Now we need to fight back against the current state of social media, where any allegation can be made in an attempt to get someone on the right canceled and it is impossible to defend yourself. This is even the case where they have claimed that I've engaged in criminal activity when I've never been arrested, interviewed, or charged in any respect, any allegations against me. Our rush to judgment before due process, thanks to coordinated dark forces in online pile-ons, destroying democracy. I will not allow myself to be canceled based on lies and will vigorously fight to defend myself. So he went again as the quote unquote, he called himself that. He is the opposition to establishment media. He said, he is the anti-woke. He went from that to statements like this. And the only reason that stuff changed is because he got accused. Anyway, I think I'm going to call it here. It kills me, though. It kills me to see how this stuff is. He's the definition of woke. Yeah, indeed. I mean, like Truby was saying, his politics. And, when we talk about, there's a big difference in you and I having. Life is complicated. Everyone, depending on the day and what's discussed there, I get called everything from being, right wing to some kind of crazy left. I get it all there. I get it over, I live in the deep South, so I'm a firearm owner, obviously. I mean, that's just part of the culture here. Oh my God, that says this about, okay, well, I believe everyone should have access to health and mental health care. Oh my God, that makes you 11. Oh, I don't care who you get with. I don't care who you have relationships with. I don't care how you identify. Oh my God, that makes you, this side. Oh, I think you should protect kids. Oh, no, that makes you this side there. Again, life is more complicated than a label. But these folks aren't just establishing some label here, putting it, putting something on and sticking to a certain ideal. They create these labels and they tell you if you don't walk lockstep. It just, like I said, it amazes me And I think a lot of people have seen through this nonsense and BS. I think they've done very good with it. I'm glad especially over the last few years, I think people have seen the manipulation. The political divide, it's ridiculous. But anyway, John, thank you for those 5 gifted memberships too. Like I said, I love being able to see not just members in here, but I love, all of again, the sexy toast, everything else is funny. I enjoy it there. And Steph, thank you for the 3. Bye. Yes, indeed. So I'm going to call it here. I appreciate all of you being here. We've ended a little bit early there, but I think this is a good place to end it. And I don't know tomorrow if things work out well over the next. I've got a Saturday, the little one, even though she had her birthday yesterday, she has a party that comes up on the weekend. Maybe if things work out, the kids really, they're the oldest one is like, I want to see the Meg too. The Meg. I'm like, what is your favorite movie? The Meg. I love the Meg. So, I don't know. Maybe with that, I'm not sure. But anyway, we'll see. There may be a live stream tomorrow. If there is, just stay tuned. I've got a video tomorrow too, laughing at some of the craziness with the Ricada litigation. There's a lot of insanity out in the world. But anyway, I'll catch you tomorrow.